Hey everybody, Nick here, and today I got a review for you of this little guy right here. This is the Jack Wolf Knives Sharpshooter. Very, very interesting new modern slip joint, and very happy to check it out on the channel here. But first, in the name of full disclosure, this guy was sent to me by Jack Wolf Knives. In fact, I talked to the Jack Wolf Knives guy a long time ago, I think at Blade West, and, he looked at some prototypes and said, yeah, when you get some production ones, send them along. And so he finally did, but nonetheless, I sent him my full disclaimer on my website. Told him he's going to talk about the good, the great, the bad, and the ugly. Might be a gem, might be junk. He did still send it along, but nonetheless, we do have to assume this is the very best quality controlled one of these guys ever, and I'm doing my absolute best to make sure that doesn't affect the nature or the quality of my review. Next thing, size comparison. This is actually a reasonably sized knife. We're going to go ahead, put it up right next to the Spyderco PM2. What we're going to see here is that blade length-wise, considerably shorter, but yeah, there you go. Here it is against your Spyderco Delica. So we see here is, this is not a particularly large knife, but in terms of sharpened blade length, about the same size as the Delica here, a little bit smaller overall, and in terms of thickness, actually, it is just about the same thickness as the Delica, maybe very slightly thicker, but not substantially so. Here it is against the Ontario Rat number 2, and so what we see here is, there you go. It's about Rat 2 size and sharpened blade length again. And then here it is against two of my very favorite modern slip joints. This is the Serge Panchenko Serge Knives slip joint. And here it is against the Tactile Knife Company Bayer, which is also pronounced Bexer if you read it. But nonetheless, this gives you a good sense of how, differently sized these guys are, even though the blade dimensions may be the same. So anyways, let's go ahead and talk a little bit about this. But first off, what the heck is Jack Wolf? Well, Jack Wolf is a brand new knife company. As far as I'm aware, they've not released anything before in the market. This is kind of their first real push here. And they are really focused, it seems, at the moment on slip joint knives. They are working with factories overseas. In fact, the factory here is unnamed and unnamed by contract. Apparently, it's not the other factory that is always unnamed by contract. So the dumbness is spreading there. But nonetheless, these are being made overseas in China. And so there we go right here. And so that is a thing. And then finally, there is no disassembly on these guys. The guy put it to me basically is you can give it a try, but you might need a jig to be able to put it back together. That's, that's a whole situation. So anyways, let's talk about the good, the great, the bad, and the ugly of this very interesting little pocket knife here. To start with, one thing I just showed you, actually, is the packaging for this. This is the packaging for this knife. It comes in this little pressed-out metal tube of some variety or another, and it actually, it comes with a little cloth in there. It comes with a little pog, for whatever reason. Apparently, pogs are back now, with some little foam in there, and it comes wrapped in a little towel, which is a very nice little towel. But nonetheless, that's how this guy is shipped, and that's cool, right? It's very clear, and more importantly, every one of these patterns that they're going to release apparently has its own comic book character, has its own little thing. This is the Sharpshooter, which is, of course, a reference to the fact that this is a gunstock pattern, of course, and so they have kind of leaned into that a little bit with their approach. But anyways, it's very clear that they're having a lot of fun with the marketing and with the branding elements of it. Is it worth paying extra for? No, probably not, unless you're the Beanie Baby collector type and you got to catch them all. But at the same time, I guess that's Pokemon, but I guess both work. Nonetheless, it's fine. It's kind of neat, I guess, and, at the very least, you get recognizable branding. It's not the 045829384560. So I appreciate that very much. Next thing, on the there are a number of different options available. There is a black micarta option, which I believe I have right here. We have an OD micarta version, so that's, of course, OD green. We have a natural micarta version, a little bit more of a reddish brown. And then there is a fat carbon version, which is a carbon fiber embedded with color of some variety or another. All of those are options. The micarta versions are the same price. The fat carbon is a little bit more. This is $275. Fat carbon is $300. We'll get back there, rest assured. But nonetheless, it's nice that you get some options. Next thing, I am told that there will be future runs of this model. The Gunstock Jack is their very first release, and they're planning to do a number of different releases of different patterns and things like that. But they are saying to me that they're going to be doing not only many releases of these potentially, but also more quantity than some of the drops that we see in other kind of things. And so their focus is on releasing new things regularly, but they should cycle back around to things if they are selling well. And that's a beautiful thing. That means that even if you watch this video and they're sold out, there's a chance you're going to be able to get one on later down the road. And that's great. And it beats the one and done sort of drop culture that's so often a thing these days. Next thing, another thing that comes in the little tube there is a slip for the knife. This is a little leather slip. Now this works is you take it and you slip the knife into it, right? And it's quite good, actually. The leather is quite pliable. It feels quite nice, and it does a good job of keeping this guy from attacking the other things in your pocket, and that's particularly relevant given how sharp these edges are on the knife. But also, it just, keeps everything safe, keeps the knife safe from harm, etc. That's a very nice thing, and it's something that a lot of slip joint makers don't do, and so, it's nice to see them going that extra mile. Next thing, the micarta on this guy is actually quite nice. This is a good quality micarta. It doesn't feel like it's all resin, nor does it feel like it's all cloth. I'm a big fan of that. The micarta is quite good here. They've done a nice job. Next thing, I am not a big fan of nail nicks as the opening method for a pocket knife, but because of the way this blade sticks up, I have had zero problem just pinching this guy open. In that way, it is very straightforward. So if you are a nail nick hater like myself, this particular pattern, and with this high hollow grind here, is very easy to open without it. So that's a great thing. Next thing, this guy has very nice fit and finish. If we kind of take a look at this guy, what we're going to see here is that things are by and large done quite well. We see the edges around these holes are quite nicely done. We see the little fluted here bits look nice. We see very close, tight fit, also known as clite, apparently, fit for the micarta here on both sides, which is good. We see a very even, smooth back spacer here. You run your finger across it, you just barely feel the transition, if you feel it at all. And that's very, very nice. And it's very clear that they've done a lot of work grinding this part after the assembly, which is a neat thing, right? So the fit and finish on this guy is quite good. They have done a very, very nice job of making a very high-quality feeling pocket knife here, and I got to applaud that 100%. Next thing, the spring on this guy, and more specifically the walk and talk, so to speak, as the slip joint owners say, is quite good. This is a very, very strong back spring, right? I can start to pinch it closed, and it will fight me. It will push back against me. So even in a situation where I'm misusing the knife by, for instance, plunging into something or something like that, because slip joints, that's not the best plan, it still does have a very strong spring, and then it also has a half stop. So even if you push past that point, it will stop here, and you will probably have hit this unsharpened portion against your finger on the blade already, which will again help to prevent the harm, and then you have to push back through there again to fully close the knife. And in fact, it has similarly a strong bias towards closure. It's very, very nicely done here. I very much appreciate that, and it's great in that particular way. I also, like I said, I appreciate the fact that the back spring here, although it does come up as you're deploying the knife, goes flush here and goes flush here again. That's a nice little detail. It's very clear that the person, the designer of these knives is very interested in sort of the mechanics of classical slip joints and has done a lot of work to try and make this work like a classical slip joint. So, pardon me, so I appreciate that very much. Next thing, this is going to be a very legal knife because not only is it coming in under 3 inches, which I could tell you if I had my ruler, which is... Where the heck is my ruler? Either way, it is coming in under 3 inches. Here we go. I'll borrow this one for a moment. What we see here is this guy comes in uncontroversially under 3 inches. There is no way to measure this that is uncharitable enough to get this over 3. And it is also a 2-hand only opening knife, and it is a non-locking knife. Just going to make this legal in a lot of places around the world where a more conventional locking pocket knife might not be. So that's great. And finally, this is a very modern take on an old pattern, right? The Gunstock style traditional knife has been there around for a long time, right? This is a very well-known and well-attested pattern, but I feel like they've done it a very nice modern take on it. It is very much not a classical knife with the titanium, with the finishing, etc. as it is, but at the same time, they've done justice to it. This feels very much identifiably like a Gunstock knife, but it is very different, and that's kind of cool. So to me, all of that is the good, is that it's a modern take on an old pattern. It's very legal with good fit and finish, nice back spring, great easy pinch opening on it, nice micarta, comes with a slip. There will be future runs, at least I'm told. There are a few options, and they're having a lot of fun with the packaging and branding. On the great side to me, though, 100% is going to be this blade. Blade is good to go. The steel here is M390. The 3 isn't the most legible thing ever, but that's an M390. And if we take a look at it here, what we see is that this is nicely ground. This is a very high hollow grind on it. The hollow comes all the way up to here, which is beautiful and leads to a very, very thin edge, which I appreciate very much. It also has a very nice swedge on the back here. It is just a very, very good blade. This is a great blade for cutting things. Could have been a little bit sharper out of the box from the factory, but it is really, really great in terms of blade. That is an absolute joy to me. So to me, what's great about this knife is it is the blade. This comes down to a beautiful thin edge. It is very, very nicely ground with a nice hollow grind, sharpening. It's just a very good blade. This is a good tool for cutting things, as any pocket knife really should be. On the bad side, to start with, I think unnamed factories are a universally bad thing for consumers. And by the way, I understand that this was a contract term forced onto Jack Wolf, but we as consumers should demand transparency here. It helps us to understand the factories because there are differences in things like heat treatment and those kinds of things, and it helps us make buying decisions. It helps us make all these manufacturers accountable for labor practices, and it helps us understand the margins that companies are operating with when they work at various price points, which is, by the way, why they tend to it's why they tend to do this anyways. But I really hope that Jack Wolf in the future is able to push back against this really dumb thing by the manufacturer, and that this does not become a norm and instead is a marked thing that we push back and say, no, that's not good, and that they're able to be transparent about their manufacturing in the future. We know this is made in China, but aside from that, that's all they're able to release, and that's kind of an ugly thing. But again, it's not on the knife itself. Next thing, this guy is this is not a disassemblable knife, at least according to the Jack Wolf people. Although you do have screws here and you can take it apart, I guess, the owner was very clear that there's a good chance I would not be able to get it back together without specialized tools to rebend the back spring, and this is very plausible, right? A lot of slip joints, especially those with a very strong back spring, are going to be very difficult to reassemble because you need to simultaneously pull the spring back as you are reinserting the blade. And so that's not something that I particularly love. Most slip joints aren't, and of course you can always maintain it just by cleaning things out, by lubricating the backside there, but that is definitely a downside to your slip joint approach. Next thing, non-locking knives are not for everybody. This is, of course, not about the knife itself. This is just the nature of the world. But non-locking knives definitely have some downsides, the biggest one of which is that in some circumstances, if there is pressure applied that is down in this direction, it can come closed on your hand. This is not a substantial issue for most people in daily cutting tasks, but at the same time, it is something to consider. If you are regularly making plunge-style cuts into things, like pushing into a bag of sand to open it up or something like that, this is not going to be the best choice for you. You can do it, but it's probably not going to be the best choice for you here. So I do kind of like the locking knives, and I do hope that we see a tail lock from Jack Wolf in the future, because I think that would be a really nice way to both keep it traditional but also appeal to the modern audience, who in many cases still appreciate locking knives. Next thing, the balance on this guy is a little bit far back, and to be fair, this is kind of the nature of a gunstock knife, right? You have more bulk in the back here, and it's not terrible by any stretch, but at the same time, the balance is a little bit further back, and so as a result, it feels maybe a little bit tiny weird in the hand, but honestly, it's not heavy enough that that's a major concern. Actually, I'll go ahead and throw it on a scale while we're out here. But, yeah, that is definitely a thing. Next thing, 2.5 ounces for 3 inches of blade. Yeah, not particularly heavy, but nonetheless, balance is a little weird. I would like to see a little bit more diversity of the titanium finishing here. They've got, all of this appears to be sort of a dark blasted titanium. And it contrasts nicely with the back spring here, but I kind of do wish we saw a little bit more diversity in finish on that. And especially at this price point, I just feel like they could have gone the extra mile and really maybe polish up these bolsters a little bit or try something that's a little bit different, a little bit more interesting, rather than going with your classical blasted titanium for the bolsters here. That's one area where this feels decidedly non-traditional, and, again, at this price point, I'd like to see every extra mile gone. Next thing, they have learned every lesson from traditional slip joints except thin stock. This is a knife with relatively thick blade stock here. Now, to be fair, I want to be 100% clear. They have done the grind such that it does come down to a thin edge despite having thick stock, but thick stock is still going to be a downside for cutting into hard materials, apples, closed cell foam, that kind of thing. And frankly, although the maker described it as aesthetic, it's not an aesthetic I particularly care for in a traditional knife. That's half the reason you go traditional, so you get knives there with that nice thin stock. So this isn't the end of any particular worlds, but especially for a company that is seeming to try so hard to be so traditional and lean into the past, I kind of wish that was a thing that they'd done. But then again, I'm always a big fan of super thin blade stock, like we see on the tactile Bayer here. I think that's just better, generally speaking. But again, it's an aesthetic choice, and, you know, they've done the grinding. They've done the hard work to get this down to a thin enough edge that I don't really care. But it's still like, really? And frankly, the whole knife would just be thinner, which is always a nice thing, too, for carry, etc. They knock the blade stock down, the whole knife. Anyways, I digress. But nonetheless, that's a thing I'd like to see in future releases. Next thing, and this is the first thing that is really, like, bad, that I really think they need to address. The edges on this guy, particularly on the back of the blade here, were actually sharp out of the box. And I don't mean sharp in the sense it cuts you open, but just really uncomfortable. I actually had to hit this area here with a sharpening stone, basically to kind of roll off those edges a little bit. And similarly, other areas here, like here, it's just very clear that although they did a lot of work to get some of the finishing right, they stopped short of making some of the chamfers they need. They did a little tiny chamfer here, a little chamfer here. It would have just made this knife feel a little bit better in the hand and in the pocket here. They kind of went 95% of the distance, but then they just forgot to finish the edges. And I feel like finishing those edges, although you can certainly do it at home, and it just, at this price, you need to do every extra mile. That brings me to the last thing, which is the price tag on this guy. This is a $275 knife. As configured, it's $300 with the fancy fat carbon. Makes sense, that's a more expensive material. But this is a bunch of cash for an overseas-made slip joint, flat out. It is using modern materials. It's nicely done. It's a great slippy, but it is a price that felt surprisingly high to me, and it really demands absolute perfection. They can charge that, but then they need to make sure that they are doing as much finishing as they can. They're using interesting finishes and textures. They need to make sure every corner is lovingly chamfered down to the absolute perfect amount of roundness. Everything is crispy. They are very close to that, but this is a price at which you cannot drop any kind of detail. As I was reviewing this, expecting this to come in closer to like $200, kind of near the tactile Bayer, which is, of course, made in the States. I figured they would be landing closer to there, but then they hit $275, and that was a whole change of the tone, so to speak. So to me, all of that is the bad. Is that the price is $275, which is pretty expensive. It's got some very sharp edges on there that do need to be addressed from the factory, or dressed from the factory, I suppose. They learned every lesson from traditional knives except use thin stock, it cuts better. Again, they put in the effort on the grind, but still, I'm picky. I want to see a little more diversity in the finishing and the titanium here. Non-locking knives are not for everybody. Balanced a little far back. It's not disassemblable, and I don't like that the factory is preventing them from using the name. On the ugly front, it's no big issues there, so let's go to the final conclusion, which is honestly mostly positive. As much as I am going to be persnickety about the price, because that's kind of my role as an advocate for consumers, is price persnicketation, there is a lot to love about this knife, right? It's got fun packaging. It's got different options, a promise of future runs, patterns, and frankly, availability. An included slip, nice micarta, easy pinch opening, great fit and finish, a really nice back spring with a strong action and great walk and talk. They have done a good fit and finish, a modern take on an old pattern, and a really nice blade. I don't like that they're being forced to conceal the factory's name. I don't like that it's not disassemblable. Non-locking knives are not the right choice for everybody at every task. The balance is pretty far back. The tie is kind of a little boring as finished here. The stock is weirdly thick for a traditional. The wrong edges are sharp here, and the price is high. But overall, I gotta say, I am impressed, especially as a feat of technical knife making. Right? This is a very nice slip joint with a very nice grind and very, very nice action, very nice spring. And that is not common, particularly coming from overseas factories. I am not super impressed, generally speaking, with the quality of action, the quality of walk and talk on those kinds of slip joints, right? And if this is their very first model, I am decidedly excited to see what's next. And honestly, the only thing that is keeping this knife from being a gem is that price tag. I carried this and I wrote most of the review. Then I checked the price on their site, and I think I probably made an audible oof because this may be what they cost to make and distribute. And the maker tells me that there is a lot of handwork in here, which explains why this is as pricey as it is, and I believe it, right? Things like the back here, things like the grind, I can totally see it, but at the same time, I can see a lot of people struggling to pay that, especially where there are areas for improvement, like the boring finishes and like the sharp edges here. And all the more so when it's easily double or triple what Great Eastern Cutlery is charging for something that's, well, in this case, this is made overseas. And so they're basically charging the GEC eBay price, because that's a company with a long history of really parasitic scalpers, rather than the GEC factory price that I was hoping for. Now, given, I want to be fair here, the materials are way better than Great Eastern Cutlery has ever done. And the execution is better too, and also better than some of the equivalents from like Lion Steel and other past attempts at modern slip joints. There are very few people who've nailed a walk and talk like this in production sort of slip joints. That is 100% true. And they're claiming they're going to make enough of these that they should be readily purchasable, and that they're not just all going to immediately disappear onto eBay as or to scalpers or other forms of parasite. Look, it sounds like you might actually be able to buy these, which would be an absolutely wonderful thing. Right now, one of the biggest problems with good slip joints is you can't freaking buy them anywhere because they all go to eBay because of the parasites, right? But especially if they're planning to lean into the regular collectible release, and that's kind of how it's making me feel with all of the fancy marketing Beanie Baby stuff. One of these guys a month is $3,300 a year, and I just don't know that that's going to land with a lot of folks, right? So although it's a great knife, and I'm sure lots of folks will pay the price and love the knife, the price tag takes this from being an, oh my God, yes, buy this gem, to being a, this is very solid, and if you like what you're seeing, you will feel just fine paying the price. Which, by the way, is kind of my final conclusion, right? This is a very nice slip joint. If you like it enough, you'll feel just fine paying the price. And as much as I do push for value, I want to give a little bit of extra praise where due. Slip joints are hard to get right in my experience. Not that I'm a knife maker, but as a knife complainer, right? It's very, very uncommon that I see a first slip joint go well. So many companies in this space move through phases of mushy back springs or unsafe actions or, ridiculous edges that aren't really good for cutting anything, or they chamfer everything down. They make a titanium sandwich, so to speak, and completely ignore some of the heritage of the slip joint market. But Jack Wolf came in and they did it right, and they did it right away. And I really do respect that. It is very clear to me that the person designing this knife is very, very attuned to the world of slip joints and very interested in being faithful to the traditions that are there in every dimension but one. Anyways, I think this is going to, as a result, appeal to a lot of slip joint purists in a way that a lot of modern slip joints really don't. This is going to feel like, wow, I love slip joints. This is a good slip joint. Whereas for a lot of people, it's just like, I love slip joints, but nobody's making those right now except GEC. And I think that's great. I really applaud them, wading into a market and seeing the opportunity, seeing the fact that the main brand in the space is just an eBay brand at this point. And so I love seeing that. So that said, final conclusion, if this design isn't doing it for you, or if the price tag ain't doing it for you, then check their website. I think they're already teasing future patterns. It could be that one of the ones coming down the road is going to be much more appealing to you. But if you are over the moon with this design, or if this extra cash doesn't matter, then I don't know how, like a wolf, you're going to resist this guy. And you should absolutely give the Sharpshooter a shot. So anyways, there you go. Hope this has been interesting to you, and have yourselves an absolutely wonderful rest of your day. Bye now.